Welcome to Critical Role Demystified. I'm Mike Christensen, and this is the series where I break down the lessons we can learn as GMs and as players from episodes of Critical Role. Today we're tackling episode 80, Raishan. Before we begin, I just really want to thank everyone who watched my 4 Daggerheart videos I just put out over these past 2 weeks. And I also want to thank the people who corrected me about something I got wrong in one of those videos. In one of them I mentioned that I didn't like the name Galapa for the turtle people in the game, because it just felt like a direct reference to the Galapagos Islands, and unless those islands exist in your campaign setting, it doesn't make any sense to use that name for a culture of turtle people. But some people in the comments pointed out that the name Galapagos is actually derived from an old Spanish word that means turtle. So just like how the monkey people in Daggerheart are called Simia, which is derived from a word we use for monkeys, the turtle people are named Galapa because that's derived from an old Spanish word for turtle. And I definitely appreciate that name a little bit more now. Also, apologies to those in my audience who speak Spanish. I know basically zero Spanish, despite my elementary school giving us some Spanish classes for a few years. But you know, I took French in high school, so that sort of ended up wiping away all the Spanish I'd learned. Although I also can't speak a lick of French. But, in fairness, it's partially because I took sign language in college, of which I retained very little of that, too. You know what? Let's stop talking about all the ways I represent the classic, ugly American, speaking only one language, and even then kind of barely. And let's get back to the Critical Role episode. Just like last time, Ashley's not at the table, so Liam and Laura are running Pike for her. Matt opens the game with a recap, like he always does, but in this case, it's extremely helpful because it's been a couple of weeks since the last game, and everybody needs a little reminder of where they all are. Like, literally where they are. How far are each of them from Thordak's Lair and Raishan? Vex, Vax, and Keyleth are in the Lair. Gilmore, Scanlan, Pike, and Percy are in the tunnel on their way to the Lair. Kima and Grog had just been fighting monsters on the surface. They haven't gone down into the Lair yet. And Jarrett's on the surface too, but he's not going to follow them. He's just tapping out. Good move from Matt to just keep him off the battlefield for this next fight. He's not going to do anyone any good with his crossbow and his very few hit points. And keeping him out of the fight means one less NPC for Matt to track in this battle. Plus, Jarrett did not get a hero's feast like everyone else, so unlike the rest of the party, he is not immune to poison damage. If he joins the fight, he'll just get himself killed. And speaking of which, yeah, the party is still immune to poison damage, so in theory that should make this fight with an ancient green dragon a lot less frightening. But Raishan is also a very powerful spellcaster, so that's probably going to make up the difference from the poison breath attacks she won't be able to use on them today. So we jump back into initiative, and here are the highlights. Again, just like last time, we're going to skip lots of stuff that does not matter. Like, there are going to be some turns where a party member just shoots at Raishan or something, but we're going to skip those when they're not really notable. Likewise, sometimes the Lair actions are going to be significant, but other times they're just standard Lair actions where the room rumbles or whatever, and we're not going to waste a lot of time talking about those. You can just trust me that they're still happening throughout the fight, even if I don't call them out every round. Although while we're on the topic of Lair actions, that's a good point. At the top of the first round of combat, Matt makes it clear that this Lair's Lair actions are still going off. And a few players try to argue that those would fade when Thordak died, since this was his Lair. They're his Lair actions. And Matt says, sure, eventually, maybe, you don't know. And to be honest, there are any number of ways you can justify still having Lair actions going off in this fight. You can say that they just take a little bit of time to wind down. That's not how it worked when they were in the Black Dragon's Lair, but not every Lair has to work exactly the same way, or at least that's my argument. If you don't like the idea that the Lairs don't have any sort of internal consistency across all of them, because in fairness, this is a game mechanic, I can understand that, but you could instead lean more into the supernatural explanation offered in a book like Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, where dragons are described as these inherently magical creatures. So maybe the Lair basically recognizes Raishan's presence as enough of a powerful dragon force that it keeps these actions going. Or you could say that when Raishan cast Meteor Swarm, that was a 9th level spell, it basically caused enough fire damage to basically fool the Lair into thinking that Thordak was still in here. The point is, you can come up with any justification you want, but I really like that the Lair actions are still in effect, because this is a cool map, but adding the Lair actions to it is going to make it even better. Now, this map itself is not the best map Matt has ever made. It's basically just a big cave with one interesting lava feature in the middle of the map. But compared to the last episode, this is a huge breath of fresh air, because that lava feature is doing a lot. It essentially splits the map into 3 sections that are safe to stand in: north, south, and east. And you can make the argument that the north-northwest corner is kind of its own territory as well, since there's another smaller pool of lava. So there really is a bottleneck to get in and out of that section. The entrance to this map is on the south wall, so there's enough room for the players to just pool into this space as they enter the chamber. But there are also alcoves on the walls and in the ceiling. I wish there was some way to sort of represent that on this map, because it's part of the way Matt describes the room, and he keeps referencing them because Raishan is currently hiding in one of those alcoves, but they're not represented on the terrain itself, which means it's going to be difficult for the players to remember that they could also interact with these, especially characters like Vex and Vax, who can fly, and Percy, who has boots of spider climb. But still, the existence of those alcoves is a really nice detail, even though we can't really see them present on the map, because they offer places for the players, or especially for the dragon, to duck inside and get some cover. And of course there are the eggs. 5 eggs in this map. And if we highlight where those are on this map, they are very close to a lot of the bottleneck points, and they're all spread out in different sections of the map, which means if the players want to interact with these eggs, it's going to force them to move around the battlefield. And in many cases, it's going to draw them close to the lava. And obviously the players don't want to be too close to the lava, and even more so once the Lair actions begin at the start of this combat, because just like the acid pools back in Umbrasyl's Lair, the lava in this chamber is already starting to pose a threat to them. With the first Lair action, lava splashes onto all 3 of our heroes who are in the room. On Raishan's first turn, she turns invisible. That's going to be a huge advantage in this fight. Keyleth considers trying to cast Fairy Fire to try to find Raishan, but it's only a 20-foot cube, and this map is large enough that she might not catch Raishan, especially if she moved after casting invisibility on herself, because dragons can move pretty far and pretty fast. So instead, Keyleth casts Call Lightning so she can have a perpetual damage-dealing source in the room. And then she becomes a fire elemental so she won't take any fire damage from the terrain and the Lair actions. That's a very smart move in this situation. Additionally, because she's conjuring a cloud near where Raishan was last spotted, her hope is that it will help to reveal Raishan's silhouette if she moves through that area. And she asks immediately if there's any sort of dragon-shaped hole in the clouds where she conjured them. Matt has her roll a perception check. She gets a 26, but she doesn't see a dragon in the clouds. At the top of Laura's turn, Matt points out that the egg near her was crushed by one of the rocks that the green dragon summoned. One of the meteors smashed an egg. And so it seems like Matt is using this as an opportunity to deliver a little bit of exposition. Raishan doesn't care about these eggs, so presumably, they're not hers. Vex takes her turn to heal herself, and then at the end of her turn, Matt describes how she feels a strange, warm, tingling sensation, separate from the Cure Wounds spell. Just like a warm breeze that passes through her, but then it passes. Weird. On Liam's turn, he uses the Dragon Slayer Longsword and Whisper to attack another egg, and even with the amount of damage he does to it, he's able to break the shell and fluid starts leaking out, but he hasn't actually made contact with the flesh of the creature inside. But he really can't attack Raishan right now since he doesn't know where she is, so he might as well try to take out one of the eggs. Side note, at this point, Matt starts drawing on the egg to indicate the damage that's been done, and Laura is surprised that he's marking up his cool prop, and I can definitely get that way myself. I really like to preserve props at the table, especially handouts, but the same can apply to props like this. I just get weirdly sentimental about them. I want to preserve them for posterity, I guess? But Matt points out it's only a wet erase marker, but he also adds, it's fun to actually represent the damage that's been done. Sam also points out, when are we ever going to play in another game with red dragon eggs around? And Matt pipes in with the fact that he ordered way too many eggs. He put a bunch in his Amazon cart so he wouldn't forget. They sat in his cart forever, and then he ordered them at the last minute and forgot to check how many were in his cart. So in his quest to get these 5 little props, he now has dozens. And boy oh boy, as somebody who has ordered props for D&D and also just ordered supplies for other DIY projects like wedding starter pieces, boy, I feel that. I know the struggle of getting what you need and then going, okay, I only needed 5, but more than 5 come in the bag, so what am I going to do with 55 more dragon eggs? It's so real. If you've had any sort of experience making props like that in D&D, share your experience in the comments below. Let me know what sort of random bullshit you wound up with after the fact that you had to find either a home for or throw out or resell. It's so stupid. But let me know in the comments below. Anyway, at the end of Liam's turn, Vax's Potion of Speed fades, since it only lasts for a minute. And unlike the Boots of Haste, the potion leaves him with the after effect of the ordinary haste spell ending, which means he becomes very lethargic for 1 round. Meanwhile, the rest of our heroes rush into the tunnel, but they're still not in the lair itself. Also, after his turn, Vax feels a warm wind pass through him. It's different from the heat in the rest of the room, he just feels a little different somehow. Weird. Still weird. Not sure what that is. The next Lair action goes off, and it's a big cloud of smoke. Vex has to make a Constitution saving throw, even though she had Hero's Feast, which should protect her from any poison effects. But she still has to roll, and she rolls an 11, and Matt says he'll keep that in mind. At this point, the cast is starting to freak out, because Matt is clearly up to some bullshit, and he's not sharing it with them. But also, I love this kind of shit. Let's be clear, it is really easy to get this wrong. You can go too far, and really wind up stoking the player versus GM dynamic in an unintended way. But the way Matt is doing this, I think, is exactly up my alley. Just telling them they feel some sort of strange effect, giving them some clue as to what's going on, but not quite enough information that they're able to guess it yet. But he's also playing fair with them. He's not breaking any rules of D&D here. He's just playing the villain as a truly brilliant bad guy, but he's still giving them enough warning that something is going on. Speaking of which, on Raishan's turn, Percy feels the warm glow and sees a brief spark of magic coming from inside a cloud of smoke. But he doesn't know where she is, he just got a glimpse of a spell and hears her moving around. Again, That's Matt playing fair. He doesn't have to do that. I mean, I probably wouldn't do that. At least that wouldn't be my instinct. But it's such a smart move. I should do that because not only does this kind of indicate where the dragon might be, but it also specifically means that whatever this warm glow is, it's being done by Raishan. This also means that when she did the same thing to Vax and Vex, she must have been using legendary actions after their turns. That little spark of magic that Percy saw just told the players a lot. Some of which they possibly could have guessed, but Matt made sure that they're all on the same page by giving a much more obvious clue. This also means she must have cast greater invisibility on herself since she's still casting spells while remaining invisible. Keyleth punches the baby dragon in the egg Vax cracked, and she pulls out the snout of a very small red dragon, like a tiny Thordak. But Thordak just had red crystals growing out of his body. This baby dragon seems to be made of crystal and rock. Matt says, this is a whole new form of dragon.
Is it alive, or did I kind of kill it by
you kind of killed it.
Yeah.
It's currently limp in your grasp.
Sure.
Hey, you killed the dragon.
Good job.
I did it! I got one!
Keyleth, the dragon.
This was like the Westworld built version of killing a dragon.
How do you want to do this? Sunny side up.
On Vex's turn, she doesn't take any poison damage from the cloud, but she loses her turn coughing. Even though she has poison resistance, the poison cloud still incapacitates her. That's another major clue from Matt. The players haven't quite figured it out yet. And in fact, in watching this episode originally, I thought Matt was kind of cheating here. Okay, the Hero's Feast means you don't take poison damage, so this doesn't damage you, but it can still get in your lungs and make it hard to breathe. I thought that was kind of a cheap move. He was basically kind of cheating, getting around their poison resistance. But now that I've already seen this episode and I know what's going on, that's not what Matt's doing at all. He is playing fair, and he's offering them another major clue, while also incapacitating one of the heroes. Grog feels the shimmer of magic, but seems to resist it. He doesn't feel the warmth go through him like the other players are experiencing. He doesn't have to roll anything for that. Matt is rolling something on his side, and in this case, he just rolled low. Pyke casts Beacon of Hope on the party, but Raishan counterspells it. And this is not quite as nasty as counterspelling a healing spell or a revivify spell, but this is one of the first times the players have ever had one of their buff spells counterspelled. And that's a pretty rude awakening. Matt is playing fair with them, but Raishan's not. She's playing dirty, because she wants to win. At this point, the shape of Raishan breaks through the clouds, and she casts another spell. Grog makes his save, so he takes half damage from whatever's about to happen. But Pyke and Vex fail. Even though Vex rolled a natural 20, she needed a 22, and her modifier is not high enough to get her there. I have a lot of thoughts about the idea that rolling a natural 20 means you could still fail a saving throw. I don't really like it. I don't like the idea that your players can roll for something, and no matter what they roll, they're doomed to fail. In fairness, I think maybe Matt changes his tune on this in the future. I'm not sure, but I know there's an encounter in the future where Liam can't succeed on a saving throw unless he rolls a natural 20, so at least he and maybe the other players assume that if he rolls a natural 20, it will be a success, even though his modifier can't get him to a success no matter what he rolls. But I don't know if that's necessarily how Matt was going to run it if he rolled a natural 20. And I'm not really sure what the solution here is, because there should be a consequence to your stats not being high enough. There should be a consequence to not having high saving throws. But if you literally can't succeed on a roll, why are you having your roll at all? So, I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Do you think a natural 20 should be an auto success on a saving throw, even if your modifier isn't high enough to meet the DC? Anyway, in this case, Matt rules it's not enough. So, Vex and Pyke take 57 necrotic damage from Abid Dalzim's Horrid Wilting, which of course everyone just calls Adel Dazim's Horrid Wilting. I do the same thing. Remember Adel Dazim? That was fun. Anyway, Vex is unconscious, and Pyke would be too, except her armor brings her back to 1 hit point. Raishan is still on the ceiling, she's invisible, but the storm clouds are rolling around her, making her location obvious. They know where she is, she just still gets the benefits of invisibility. But not for long, because Gilmore casts Dispel Magic on Raishan, eliminating her invisibility. That kind of screws with what Raishan was going to do throughout this fight, what Matt was going to have her do, but he's also playing Gilmore the way he would behave, using his spells to solve this problem. This is kind of the challenge of bringing, especially high level, but any NPC into a battle, is you have to play them fair, while also that sometimes means they're going to mess with your villain's plans. But we'll talk more about high level NPCs, especially in another video at some other point. Grog feeds Vex a healing potion to bring her back to consciousness.
Man, it's a rough fight. But we're winning right now, guys? We're winning.
No,
we don't need any help, do we?
Did you forget?
I totally forgot!
How could you forget?
Oh
It's
my
like
god,
all I thought
I
about.
will cuddle you. I will cuddle.
I even
He's
wrote.
not. He's not going to do it till Ashley's dead.
I wrote a limerick
Ashley is almost
You wrote a
dead.
limerick.
for you.
Yeah, but she's not dead
For
yet.
me?
Yeah.
To
She
do
needs
what?
to be permadead.
Wait, I forgot I did it. Have you heard tell of Scanlan the Bold? He won't tell us his age, but he's old. With his blade, he's a slayer. With the ladies, a player. But if he picks up the flute, he's pure gold.
All right, so I'm gonna do lightning bolt.
But jokes aside, he plays the flute. The brass flute shines and glows, and then tarnishes and becomes dull. Raishan unloads attacks on Vax, fighting him in midair. She bites him, and the bite does poison damage, even though he had a hero's feast. And the party realizes that's what the warm glow was. Raishan was dispelling their hero's feasts. She also hits him with one of her claws and knocks him unconscious, and he falls. At this point, she also hits him with a tail, and then he hits the ground. So I think he should have lost at least 2 death saves, maybe 3. If he's right up close to her, that tail attack would technically be within melee range, but at the bare minimum, that should have been 2. But I think Matt and Liam just totally forgot about that, which is fine. It happens. But Matt does have Liam roll a d20 to see where he's going to land, because there's a chance he could just drop into the lava. Liam rolls a 17, and he lands next to the lava.
Alrighty. You watch
No.
as Raishan over in the edge. Her front claws begin to form this strange geometric sigil in the middle of the air, and each corner of it is a different color. Green, orange, yellow, red, purple, blue.
No.
And suddenly, this giant
Can
burst.
I try to counterspell her?
What's the
Oh my
range
God.
on that?
60 feet. Am I just
Come
there?
on, Scanlan.
Oh god,
What is she
Scanlan.
casting? What
Looks
is
like
that?
it.
Chromatic spray.
She's within range.
Oh god.
Go ahead and make your
Please.
roll. D20 add 6.
18.
You rolled an 18.
No, I rolled a 12.
You rolled a 12. That's an 18 total. It is a. Hold on a second.
God, I can't breathe.
I'm pretty
I
sure.
can't breathe. I can't breathe.
As the.
I get a +2 for.
Right. Oh, I know.
Okay.
The sigil, as the burst of colored light begins to spray forward, you watch as it just.
I love the fact that Matt actually included enough detail in the casting of this spell that they knew what it was before she even cast it. This is a debate I see play out all the time in D&D games. The villain starts casting a spell and someone asks, do I know what spell they're casting? And the GM might ask for an Arcana check and determine the answer that way. But in this case, the description is so detailed, they all know exactly what spell she's casting. Nobody even needs to ask. And yes, I would not be surprised if the reason he did this is so somebody could potentially counterspell it, but even if that was not the case, even if he had forgotten that Sam had that spell, or didn't think he was within range, or just wasn't worrying about it because he's just trying to play the character and do what she would do, I love the fact that this description of her casting the spell essentially gave the players enough information about what was coming next that it actually heightened the tension at the table, even if it was just for a few seconds. And that brief moment of time became even longer when they were waiting to find out if the counterspell worked or not. But it was still tense because the spell description started before she finished casting it, and the players were terrified because they know what that spell was, or at least they know enough about it to really worry, because that spell would have killed them. Not all of them, of course, not immediately, and who knows which players would have been hit by which color beam. Prismatic Spray is a very unpredictable spell. Maybe Vax would have been hit by the one that turns you blind, so he wouldn't have lost a death saving throw and died. Of course, if you get hit with that ray and then you fail your second saving throw, you get transported to a random other plane of existence, so that probably would not have been very good for him. And there's still a 7 out of 8 chance he would have just taken an insane amount of damage and lost a death saving throw, and a 1 in 8 chance he would have been hit by multiple beams and just been killed on the spot. But that spell would also have definitely knocked a bunch of other characters completely unconscious, and I don't think there would have been any coming back from that. This fight could not have been won if that happened. As Percy points out when they're discussing this spell, right after the turn happens, it's a great spell to deal with people who specifically took precautions against your other abilities, like your poison breath. Oh, and by the way, that was a legendary action at the end of Keyleth's turn. The same way Dispel Magic was being done with a legendary action. So she definitely has a system where she's able to cast spells with her legendary actions. Matt isn't yet narrating how many legendary actions she's spending on each of these, or how many legendary actions she has in general, but I have the benefit of hindsight. I know that in future encounters, his spellcasting enemies will use a system where they can use 1 legendary action to cast a cantrip, and 2 legendary actions to cast a leveled spell. His players don't know that yet because they've never dealt with a spellcaster with legendary actions before, but the point is, she sure is casting a whole lot of spells when it's not her turn. And speaking of which, Boy, that really is the perfect transition. Because Gilmore casts Blight on her, she makes the save but still takes 17 damage, and Matt narrates that her infection from her disease seems to flare up and spread for a moment, and it's a really cool way to narrate that. It's a nice way to highlight the necrotic damage that's always present in her body. But then Grog hits her with a natural 20, and as a result of taking that damage, Matt very specifically says because of the damage she took, there's a burst of magic and suddenly her wings are beating much faster than normal. And the party realizes immediately she's under the effects of the haste spell, but they don't know how that's possible. She didn't cast the spell. Very clearly that did not happen. But somehow a spell was still cast upon her. They don't know how that happened. But I do, and this is why I love the spell contingency. Because you can cast a spell and set a criteria where it will then take effect on you in the future. For example, you could prepare the haste spell and say that it kicks in whenever you lose half your hit points. And so now that moment happens where you start to get really roughed up, but you're prepared with a method to make your escape more easily. Or, if you want, you can start doing a lot more damage and start really eliminating your enemies with extreme prejudice. Speaking of which, she uses her next legendary action to get rid of Scanlan's Hero's Feast. She's just working her way through the party. Vex heals Vax, brings him back to life, and then she drinks a superior healing potion of herself. Now, Vax's wings are gone for the rest of this encounter, so he's just throwing daggers from ground level now. But at this point, there's a flash of light in the tunnel behind them, and Devosa arrives. And upon entering, they notice that Raishan is not the ancient red dragon they agreed to help Vox Machina slay. But a deal is a deal. They blast Raishan with their fire breath, and by the way, that is yet another reason I think Scanlan was right to hold off on playing the flute until this fight. Fire breath would have been useless against Thordak. Raishan picks up one of the eggs, flies in the air, and then breathes poison gas down on the party. A lot of whom are now vulnerable to that. Well, not vulnerable in the D&D sense, but no longer immune to it. Matt says Gilmore's fine, he had a Hero's Feast last time, but the party misremembers they thought he didn't get one because they knew somebody didn't eat a Hero's Feast. They thought Gilmore was one of the people who didn't get a chance to eat it. In fairness, it's been literally like a month since the episode where they cast Hero's Feast. They don't exactly remember. But unfortunately, that means that he has to make the save along with the other party members who had their Hero's Feast dispelled. The twins are knocked unconscious, and Gilmore and Scanlan each have 2 hit points. Vex falls and hits the ground and loses a death saving throw. That was a rough turn.
As the poisonous breath billows out and everyone's coughing and falling over, you watch the twins fall unconscious. Raishan kind of grins.
You've got a few surprises, I see, but you're not the only ones.
No, does she have more surprises?
I think that's what she meant, yeah.
Is there more? I hope that's not.
There's cake and ice cream
I
upstairs.
have more surprises. Guys, I think she has more surprises.
That's literally what she just said.
Well, I just thought maybe the breath was a surprise.
Raishan flies across the chamber and picks up another egg, so now she's holding 2. Keyleth drops her fire elemental form and casts Chain Lightning on Raishan and the eggs. That's a nice move to try to cook the eggs, so Raishan can't use them for whatever she plans to use them for. Unless she's planning on cooking them, in which case, you've saved her some time. But then Keyleth casts Healing Word on Vax, bringing him back to consciousness.
At the end of your turn, watching you form over, hit her with lightning and kind of hit the eggs, and all of a sudden breath come back to the lungs of Vax on the ground. Raishan,
Not so fast.
still clutching the eggs, her front claws kind of form this small spiral as the air grows surprisingly cold, causing this kind of mist to form around the extended ends of her claws. As she puts her arms forward, casting Cone of Cold outward from her.
Again, I love that the description of this spell being cast includes some foreshadowing for what it is. But this Cone of Cold does quite a number on the party. Vex loses a death save, Devosa and Kima both take some damage, and Vax, Scanlan, and Pike get knocked unconscious. The twins and the gnomes are down. At this point, they're more than 2 hours into this session, so it is clear they are not going to take a break today. Because it does not look like this fight is going to end anytime soon.
What I'm scared of is that I'm gonna be away from the table when I actually die. But I have to pee.
Go pee, go pee. It's fine.
Just don't kill me while I'm not at the table, okay, Matt?
I'll do my best.
Hey, when she gets back, let's all be crying.
Don't, I heard that.
Raishan uses 2 more legendary actions to cast Acid Arrow on Gilmore. Matt says she has 4 legendary actions every turn. So that's our answer. That's how he's handling the balance. It's 2 legendary actions for every spell, so she can't just cast 4 spells every round outside of her turns. Theoretically, she might be able to use a legendary action on a cantrip, but it would not make sense for the action economy. It makes more sense for her to save those 2 legendary actions so she can use 2 of them to actually cast a proper spell. It's basically like having 2 more spellcasters on the battlefield, but they all share 1 pool of hit points. And a single pool of spell slots, because she will run out of spell slots eventually. That's starting to happen. But that's not the biggest problem right now, because now Gilmore is unconscious. We are 5 down. This is officially a death spiral. A death spiral means once you start losing, you've picked up too much momentum and you're going to start losing faster and faster. Every combatant who falls means you're losing control over the action economy. And right now the only healers on the battlefield are Keyleth, Kima, and whatever potions Grog has. All the other healers are currently dying. But Grog can make it to Pike, so he feeds her a potion to get her back on her feet. Unfortunately, nobody can make it to Vex before she fails her final death saving throw, and she dies. Thankfully, Vax makes his next save and Kima heals Gilmore, but don't worry everybody, Devosa is here. Now their fire breath does not recharge, and that's a bummer, but they can still attack Raishan 3 times. Well, they roll a 3, a 2, and a 1. Pike uses her sprinter's boots to get to Vex and casts Revivify, and since they're in the middle of combat, they don't have time for the full resurrection ritual, so Matt is going to handle this with a single resurrection skill check. Pike rolls, well remember, Ashley isn't here, so Liam rolls for her, and he rolls a 10, which is the DC, so Vex is alive with 1 hit point. Raishan uses her last legendary resistance. She has only started using these once her contingency spell went off to resist lightning bolts from Gilmore and Scanlan, and the last one is used to resist Devosa beating their wings and trying to knock her prone, which is not normally a huge deal, certainly not what you would normally use a legendary resistance for. It just doesn't seem like she can take a whole lot more abuse. But then again, neither can the party. Scanlan fails a death save, a Lair action goes off, splashes Vax and Scanlan with lava, he loses another death saving throw, and Vex is knocked back unconscious.
It is now Raishan's turn.
So not good.
I just want to go flip the table over.
Hasted. Raishan, by the way, from the attack from Percy, the damage you can see Raishan is now visibly bleeding. Parts of the scales are torn. You can see now at a close-up vantage point, as much as the previous dragons you've battled have had a lot of resilience, Raishan's taken a fair amount of damage, but seems to not be quite as physically hardy as what you previously faced and is looking visibly hurt.
That really seems to me like it's a very clear clue from Matt that Raishan could be brought down pretty easily if the players can manage to land a hit on her. Of course, that's easier said than done.
Raishan is going to begin the round, turning to the rest of you.
I have business elsewhere, and you're being really obnoxious. Stay down.
And glancing over is going to go ahead and, with both of her hands again, release another, she is almost out of spells, Cone of Cold.
Like alcohol.
Oh no, this is gonna be Scanlan.
That is, I need, so Scanlan.
No!
God.
Scanlan
God
is
fucking damn it.
frozen, covered in ice, locked in place. A solid gnome, bereft of life, motionless on the ground.
I died as I lived. Hard.
Pike is down. Vax fails a death save. This is getting bad. Matt still describes that Raishan is really wounded as she hisses at them that she's going to go on with her day and they should just die in here. He describes that blood is running in from between her teeth. He's sending the signal that she's hurt. She's probably on death's door. But unfortunately, she still has the advantage here. And so here's her challenge to the GM. How do you steer out of a death spiral? In a perfect world, the heroes would rally and slay the villain and all heal themselves and dust themselves off and walk out of the lair like badasses. Ain't no rest for the wicked plays in the background. That's not going to happen today. You can also hope the players might run when a situation starts to go south, but setting aside the fact that you should never count on your players to retreat, this went south so fast. They really couldn't have gotten out. They're using all their resources just to stay alive. Hardly anybody has been hitting Raishan for a while now. But Matt does have another way to end the death spiral. Raishan could just leave, and that is perfectly in keeping with how he's established that she's really badly hurt. But it's also in keeping with the fact that we know she has a larger goal. She didn't come here to kill them all. She came here to get info on Thordak's corpse. And that's still her primary goal, and that's more important to her than just killing Vox Machina. In fact, she is so desperate to get out of the situation that she actually allows the Brass Dragon to get an attack of opportunity on her. And of course, Devosa rolls a natural 20 and takes a big bite out of her, but she still maintains her concentration on her haste spell, and she flies into the tunnel. Because sometimes it actually makes the most sense for the bad guys to retreat. We talked about this when I made videos on the book The Monsters Know What They're Doing. Because sometimes there is a threshold where the monster is not going to take any more abuse and just say, deuces, I'm out of here. Now, all Keyleth wants to do, all she wants to do, is to conjure a wall of stone so Raishan can't get away. And we can discuss whether or not that's a great idea. The rest of the party can't necessarily contribute a bunch to that fight, but Raishan's clearly very badly hurt. Matt has been making that very clear. He's telegraphing that. And Devosa, theoretically, maybe, could hit Raishan again. We'll see. But thanks to Raishan's haste spell, Raishan is already far outside of the range of where Keyleth could possibly cast it. Even if she ran down the tunnel, she still cannot get anywhere near close enough to throw up the wall of stone in front of Raishan. There's just, sadly, no way to stop Raishan from running. So she focuses on trying to heal her friends. But again, easier said than done. Well, no, you think healing your friends would be pretty easy, right? I mean, what could go wrong?
Can I cross this tinier lava right there, kind of like, or is that like a pretty far jump?
I mean, you have to still jump, so you have to make an athletics check.
How far of a jump is that?
It's about 6-7 feet. So make an athletics check.
Sure, why not? Why not at this point?
No, Keyleth, no.
Well, that was a natural one.
On what? On what?
Just moving.
Just trying to jump across.
Trying to jump
Should have
across
been
some
literally
lava.
anything else.
How many hit points do you have? How many hit points do you have?
Doesn't matter. She's not even going to get over to anyone to heal them.
Oh, well.
I don't know, man.
1-6
Lava,
or 6-0?
6-0.
But no, she's not necessarily fine. Lava has a new rule now.
Well, not a new rule, the actual rule.
Yeah, the actual rule that we didn't use the very, very first time.
Oh, God.
But we felt it last time.
So, as you rush over trying to help, you go to leap, but your foot catches what you thought was solid volcanic rock. Unfortunately, it's brittle and broken, and it slips beneath your foot. In doing so, you only get about 3 feet before you plant the lower half of your body straight into the lava.
Oh my god.
That's 53 points of fire damage.
53!
You're alive!
Get out! Get out of it! You can get out of it! You've got 7 points
He
left.
died as he lived.
A fucking dumbass.
Unreal. Everything that can go wrong is going wrong. But she's able to pull herself out of the lava and cast Healing Word to wake Vax up.
This is the worst.
This is.
Wow!
I was like, as long as I don't roll a 1, that shouldn't be that hard. Oh, okay.
Oh, look, someone left a metaphor on the ground. Oh, God. Don't step in it or anything. Oh, God. It's everywhere. Wow. Well, this could have gone worse.
Wow!
Yeah.
Okay, I'm out of the
This whole thing
flame.
is a metaphor for 2017.
Does Germansa Ord have any healing spells?
I don't know if you can hear it, but Matt mentions that this whole thing is a metaphor for 2017. This is their first game of that year, and considering that Donald Trump was about to take office for the first time, they were feeling a little trepidatious. And yeah, that first year of the Trump administration did frequently feel like getting dropped into a pool of lava, so Matt pretty much nailed it. Gilmore runs after the green dragon, but slams into an invisible magical barrier. Somehow Raishan has found a way to block their exit from the tunnel. And that is a huge, deflating moment for Vox Machina. Yet another barrier, yet another obstacle keeping them from getting to Raishan and killing her. Even Gilmore sounds so dismayed when he encounters the wall. But maybe this is kind of a hot take, but I think Matt saved Vox Machina's lives by having Raishan cast that spell. Because now they can't get to Raishan, so all they can do is try to heal themselves. Grog feeds another healing potion to Pike. Vex fails her second death save, but then Vax uses Lay on Hands to bring her back up. Now everyone is awake, except for Scanlan, who is still dead. Kima attacks the magical wall, but nothing happens. Devosa does the same, then breathes fire on it. Still nothing. Matt wastes 2 NPC turns on that, so the players feel like at least someone is working on trying to get through that wall. They feel like they're making some effort to get out, but by having 2 incredibly powerful NPCs try to do this and fail, Matt avoids the issue that would have happened when the players might try it, where they might wonder if they just didn't roll high enough or didn't roll high enough damage or they're using the wrong weapons. No, this is a sign that they can't get through the wall right now, and it's delivered by wasting NPC turns, so the players don't have to waste their own turns on the wall, where they can instead prioritize healing their fallen allies. It's a really smart move from Matt. They want to get Pike to Scanlan's body to try to bring him back to life, but this is a big map, and she's pretty far away. But Ashley's texting them from New York. She's watching the game. She's saying that Sprinter's Boots can be used twice. Thanks, Pathfinder, I assume. So Pike is able to rush to Scanlan and try to bring him back to life. And Ashley's texting with them with what she wants to say, in her ritual to try to bring him back to life. So even though this next sentence is spoken by Laura, these are Ashley's words.
So Pike puts her hands on either side of his face and says, Scanlan, your letter to me was wonderful, and I want to do what you've asked, but I can't raise Haley alone. I need you to come back. And she casts Revivify on him.
Okay. Go ahead and roll a d20.
I'm so scared. 13.
13? Okay. As she implores to the spirit of Scanlan in this frozen form, you watch as the icy crystals that have coalesced around his form and locked him in place, his face kind of this frozen look of horror. The ice begins to turn to mist around him, and his color begins to return to his skin. His expression relaxes as his eyes suddenly focus, and Scanlan, you find yourself conscious again, looking up at Pike, tears in her eyes, pulling her hand back from your shoulder, looking up into the dark, glowing, lit interior of Thordak's lair.
Don't cry. I'm just a little cold.
Warm up. Does anybody have a blanket?
Just hold me.
Okay.
Matt describes how the lair actions are starting to subside a little bit. There is still a quake, but the NPCs who are near it roll well enough that they don't get knocked down. And I like that he's slowly allowing the lair to wind down. It didn't fade immediately when Raishan left, and it's not linked to the proximity of Thordak's body. He hasn't gone anywhere. It's just taking a bit of time for the lair to recognize Thordak is dead and for the lair actions to begin to subside. Obviously, this is probably something Matt is doing very deliberately to signal this encounter is winding down, but it's still very effective. Oh, by the way, they see a flash of purple energy from the tunnel down from where they saw Raishan flee. That's weird. So, Matt's obviously keeping track of what she's doing on her turns. The party's trying to figure out how to get past this barrier. Keyleth especially really wants to use Stone Shape to try to carve a passageway through the rock so they can call through. But the problem is that this layer is so large, most of the players are all way too far away from the barrier to do anything. So it literally takes them their entire turn just to get up to it, and then they can't do anything when they get there. And as much as she really wants to cast the spell, they kind of have to stay in initiative order because these layer actions, while they're weakening, are still not negligible, because these players don't really have a lot of hit points to survive some of these layer actions. Grog can at least unload his attacks into the last remaining egg, and once he does, and he chops up the baby dragon inside, he decides to just hurl a chunk of baby dragon flesh at the forest wall, in case only certain types of creatures can pass through it. Like, maybe Raishan could only get through the wall because she was holding the eggs. So he throws the chunk of flesh, and it passes through the entryway, harmlessly, and lands in the tunnel. The wall is gone. The party erupts in cheers. Clearly, Travis has solved this puzzle. Either the dragon flesh can pass through the barrier, or all they need to do is get rid of the last of the eggs, and suddenly, the barrier is gone because it was linked to the eggs somehow. But I don't think that's what's happening. I think that Raishan cast the spell she was leaving, and I think after her last turn, she drops concentration on the spell. And we'll see why she probably didn't feel like she needed to maintain concentration anymore in just a minute. Because before our heroes go charging into the tunnel, Keyleth stops them and says she feels guilty that her rage and her need for vengeance got them to rush into a fight where they clearly were not ready for it. And the rest of them say, look, this is no time for guilt. Her point is, maybe they shouldn't do that again. She doesn't want them all to die again by running in half-cocked. Again. But everyone else insists, no, we have to finish this right now. So, okay, let's do it. They charge down the hallway all together. Scanlan uses Dimension Door to bring Lady Kima directly to Thordak's body, right where they know Raishan will be. But Thordak's body isn't there anymore. Raishan's not there. They're both gone. As the party catches up with them, Gilmore realizes that purple flash that they saw was a teleportation spell. Laura uses Primeval Awareness to see if she can sense any dragons within 6 miles. And aside from Devosa, nope. Nothing. They're gone. And that is the end of the episode. Raishan is in the wind with Thordak's corpse, and the Chroma Conclave storyline, which seemed like it would end with the death of Thordak, or maybe with this final Raishan fight, well, she got away. So the storyline is not over yet.
Great job, Mike.
Thanks, Odwick. And as you saw, I did what you wanted me to do. When you cast that spell on me in the last Demystified video, I made 4 Daggerheart videos. And I also got 2 Demystified videos out in 2 weeks. So congratulations, you got what you wanted.
Oh, we're not done.
Wait, what do you mean?
Your audience doesn't just want Daggerheart videos from you. There's something else they've been asking for a long, long time.
No.
And I think it's time we finally give the people what they want.
Don't do this.
So, coming next week, another Demystified video.
No, I cannot do weekly installments of Critical Role Demystified. I do not have the bandwidth to cover another 4-hour episode next week. I cannot do a Demystified video for Vox Machina episode 81 with only a week turnaround.
Well, that's okay. There are other Demystified videos you can make.
What do you mean?
Your patrons have been submitting requests for bonus Demystified videos for months. I think it's time we catch up on that back catalog. Starting next week, weekly Demystified videos. And let's throw in some more Daggerheart videos too.
So that means
2 videos a week, at least. And not just next week, but every week. You thought we were done after this episode? No. We're just getting started. See you soon.
Cool. Awesome. Great. Well, come back soon for another video. Probably a Daggerheart video, probably on Monday. And next, probably Thursday, I guess we're doing a bonus Demystified video. Awesome. Well, cool. Make sure you're subscribed so you can stay up to date with all these videos. Please come and watch them. We've got lots to talk about, including Daggerheart analysis videos, some videos about Critical Role Campaign 4, and some bonus Demystified videos about various one-shots. That'll be interesting. So make sure you're subscribed because it seems like things are going to start getting really interesting around here. And speaking of things that are interesting, I made some great Daggerheart videos over the past few weeks. Thank you so much to all the people who watched them. But one of those videos was about the dice of Daggerheart. I think that video came out great, but because of the topic and probably the thumbnail, it didn't get as many clicks as I might have hoped. So go check it out if you missed it. It's really great. I'm really proud of that video. I think some people slept on it, and I think you should watch it. It's a really excellent analysis, I think, of the mechanics behind Daggerheart's dice. Until next time, play fair and have fun.